Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be diving into a topic that, honestly, requires a bit of self-reflection. We're unpacking the concept of pity, specifically looking at how it shapes our interactions with the disabled community. It's a really profound look at the assumptions we make every single day without even realizing it. We're going to deconstruct this, looking closely at the lenses through which we view others and how those lenses affect the world around us. We'll be using some direct text from our source material today to really break down this dynamic. So let's just jump right in with a pretty fundamental question.
Our source material actually kicks things off by asking this. What does pity means in disability humans, homo sapiens sapiens? Now, I know that phrasing might sound a little, clinical, looking at us as a species, right? But it's forcing us to zoom all the way out. As human beings interacting with other human beings, what exactly is this reflex we call pity when we direct it at someone with a disability? Why does this social reflex exist? And more importantly, is it helping or is it actually a barrier? To really get that, we need to define what this looks like in the real world.
So let's establish a baseline here by looking at the exact definition from our source, explaining. When people talk about pity in relation to disability, they usually mean feeling sorry for a disabled person just because they are disabled. For example, someone might see a person using crutches or wheelchair and immediately think, "That's so sad. Just three little words, but man, they carry a massive amount of weight." Notice that emphasis on feeling sorry just because. It's this automatic, unearned sorrow. Think about how fast our brains jump to that conclusion. You see a mobility aid, and boom, a subconscious trigger fires off, labeling that person's entire existence as a tragedy. You project this whole narrative of sorrow onto a total stranger in a fraction of a second. It's an emotional projection that honestly says way more about the person thinking it than the stranger they're observing. And here is the absolute critical flaw in making that snap judgment. You're making that profound judgment, thoughtful, without really knowing anything about that person's life. I mean, think about the arrogance of that for a second. You're looking at a tiny snapshot, literally 1 second, of someone waiting for a bus or grabbing groceries and deciding, oh, their life is inherently sad. You have no idea if they just fell in love, got a promotion, or are just having a completely average, content Tuesday. The danger here is that pity completely overwrites reality with an assumption. It replaces a complex, multidimensional human being with a one-dimensional, tragic caricature. So how do we fix this? We have to completely shift our perspective. It's the difference between the lens of pity and actually seeing the whole person. Explaining. The problem is that pity focuses only on what someone can't do, instead of seeing the whole person, their abilities, goals, personality, and independence. It can feel uncomfortable because it may come across like, "Your life must be bad," or, "Actually, let's pause on that first part for a second. Your life must be bad." Even if nobody says those words out loud, the energy of pity just screams it. It communicates this fundamental disbelief in a disabled person's capacity for joy or fulfillment. It invalidates their lived experience. Can you imagine walking through the world constantly absorbing the subtle vibe from strangers that your existence is somehow worse than theirs? It's exhausting. And it manifests in these silent judgments, sure, but it also pops up in overt, uninvited actions. Like when someone approaches and says, "Can I help you with something?" Now, look, let's be very clear here. Offering help is not inherently a bad thing. Human kindness is absolutely essential, but context is literally everything. When the offer comes from a genuine situational need, it's great. But when it stems purely from the lens of pity, when you just assume someone needs saving because they're disabled, even if they're managing their tasks perfectly fine, that strips away their autonomy. It's the difference between holding a door because someone's hands are full and just grabbing a wheelchair without asking because you assume they can't manage a ramp. The underlying assumption is what makes it a problem. Which brings us to our final takeaway today. How do we actually evolve past this automatic reflex? So yes, pity does mean feeling sorry, but when it comes to disability, it's important to go beyond pity and focus on understanding, respect, and fairness. These three things, understanding, respect, and fairness, they're active. Pity is passive and isolating. Respect requires you to acknowledge someone's agency. Fairness requires you to look at dismantling the barriers that actually make life difficult, rather than just feeling bad about those barriers. It's a fundamental rewiring of how we interact with the world around us. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. The very next time you find yourself observing someone with a disability, try to catch that immediate internal reaction and ask yourself, are you viewing them through a lens of pity, or are you actually seeing them through a lens of respect?